And the problem is that it's very hard to get people involved in the conservation environmental movement because for the most part we're primates and we get distracted very easily. And therefore we're far too interested in entertaining ourselves than we are in actually getting the job done and getting on with it. In fact, if you take the number of people who are subscribers to the video game Warcraft, it exceeds the number of people who are involved in the conservation environmental movement. So more people are involved in fantasy worlds than there are in actively trying to protect the planet that we live on. And so we're going to have to do something about that, and it is being done because more and more young people are becoming more and more concerned. We certainly have more awareness than we ever have had before, and that awareness is increasing. Now, I've always said that the solution to our problems is the impossible one, but I believe that the impossible can be achieved. And how is it to be achieved? By the imagination and the initiative and the passion of individuals. That's what changes the world. Every single social revolution in the history of humankind has been carried out by the passion of individuals. Whether it's the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, the gay movement, all by the passion of individuals. It's the Martin Luther Kings and the Mahatma Gandhis and the Nelson Mandelas that have made a difference. And Nelson Mandela is a good example of how the impossible can become possible. In 1972, the very idea that Nelson Mandela would be president of South Africa was unthinkable, unimaginable, and impossible, and yet it happened. So therefore, these answers are there, and they're there to be found, especially by younger people. All we have to do is cultivate their imaginations. Now, when people tell me, well, what do we teach our children? My answer to that is you don't teach them anything. It's about time we started to listen to our children and stop trying to teach them, because they seem to know more about what's going on than we do. We send them to schools where we're taught to tell them that basically to alienate themselves from the planet. And if anybody talks to any average 5 or 6 year old, they're pretty much in tune. So we got to stop taking them out of that sync and turning them into what many people have become, which is apathetic and uncaring and disconnected and alienated from the natural world.
What did I do back in 1970, the first Earth Day? It was on a year that also started doing stuff back then, good friends of mine. But what did I do? I'm going to tell you that in a second, but first of all, I'm going to tell you what I didn't do. I didn't go broke buying things I couldn't afford in 1970. 1970 solar panels, which were crazy expensive, or things like that. I was a broken, struggling actor. You can look this up on the internet. I didn't have a lot of work back then. I was a wannabe. I didn't have a series. I didn't have anything. An occasional day or two on a show somewhere, but I made very little money, so I couldn't do a lot. So I didn't buy those things I couldn't afford. What did I do? I started recycling, which, by the way, for those of you who don't know, recycling is a gateway drug to further environmental activism. So be careful, you're going to start there. It's going to lead to other things. So I started recycling, I started composting, I started buying all biodegradable soaps and detergents. I became a vegetarian, eating a lot lower in the food chain. I did all this stuff. I turned the thermostat down, in the winter and up in the summer. I started riding my bike even more than I already did. I certainly rode my bike my whole life. I had a paper route and all that as a young man, but I rode it even more for transportation, get from point A to point B. I took public transportation before that first Earth Day. I took it even more. And what happened? What happened? I think you can guess what happened because I gave you a hint. I was doing good things for the environment, but I also started saving dough. So pretty soon after just a few months, I had extra money. I'd saved hundreds of dollars. I had about 900 and some odd dollars. You know what I did with that money? You could have put it in the bank. That's a good thing to do with money, by the way. I encourage everybody to save too, but I didn't do that. I did another thing that I think is equally as good. I invested it in other green technology that would save me even more money. And what did I do with that 900 some odd dollars? I bought an electric car. You heard me right, 1970, I bought an electric car. There's people that don't believe that happened. People say, they didn't have electric cars in 1970. Of course, they had them in 1910. Henry Ford's wife preferred her Baker Electric to his noisy contraption. They were around for a while, but I didn't have one of those collector's items like my friend Jay Leno kind of cars. He has one of those. I bought a 1970 Taylor Dunn. In case you think I'm making any of this up, look anything up on the Google right as you're sitting here if you got your hand held. I'm not making any of it up. Taylor Dunn made electric cars then, as they did before 1970s. They still do today. Now, when I say car, I'm being quite grand. We're talking about a golf cart with a windshield wiper and a horn, okay? It did not have a steering wheel. It had a tiller.